Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Spooky AF. My name is Rob, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Suz.
Howdy.
Suz, how are you? How are you doing?
I am delighted for the episode today.
Amazing. And the reason why I think Suz is delighted today is because we are in a very special episode in that we have some guests on with us. We have Lisa and Christina from the Beer Ladies podcast.
Hi!
Amazing.
So we're coming up on a year of podcasts, and y'all are our first guest spots, and we are so delighted to have you.
Yeah,
Oh,
first
thank
guest.
you. We're thrilled.
So no, it's been really fun, and for anyone who's listening, we just recorded our own episode with the Beer Ladies, so do check out that as well, please. It was really fun. I think myself and Suz both agree it was great crack.
For sure.
We had lots of fun talking about beer and haunted pubs. So
Yes. And Fake Tan in the
And
early
Fake Tan.
2000s.
key.
It was
Yeah.
terrifying.
All equally terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we were organizing this and everything and kind of planning and trying to get everything together, one of the questions that we asked Lisa during the week was briefly describe the Beer Ladies podcast. And I think you gave us the best description possible. It was, we're a podcast about beer by women for everyone.
We
I
are
loved
indeed.
it.
And I have to think, Christina, keep me honest. I want to say probably it was Tandy who came up with that because she's just very good at these things. So there are four of us all together. You have two of us today because we're the two like weird spooky nerds, are Christina and myself. But we also have Tandy and Katie. And I think Tandy came up with that tagline because she is very good at that kind of, what would we say, epigrammatic kind of, taglining. It is good. Yeah. So all credit to Tandy.
It's a great one. I do love it. So you started talking about there. So how did you actually get started? How did this podcast start?
I think in the way all podcasts start, right? So, Christina, we had all gone away. Was it Galway we went to, I think, initially?
Yeah, we had all rented a house together in Galway during that time in the pandemic where you could stay with a couple of people and
Oh, you had your bubble?
yeah, and be on vacation and it was okay. It was in between the lockdown.
Yeah, because there was the first big lockdown, and then you could kind of go out and do stuff, and then it kind of came back again before that sort of, it's fine for Christmas, there's no COVID for Christmas, and then everyone got COVID. But anyway, in between, we all went to Galway, and I think, again, many of us were like, we should do a podcast. There aren't enough women podcasting about beer, which is frankly still true, because, 'twas ever thus. But when I say 'twas ever thus, we always talk about beer history, and obviously they used to be very much, sort of driven by women, so we can talk a bit about that. But we were really we have people who are interested in beer from really different perspectives. So Christina and I are both kind of your history nerds, and obviously Christina's the proper kind, writing books out here. So buy her books, but
Buy Christina's books. We will definitely plug them in our socials and things. So
We are going to plug the fuck out of these, so don't worry.
And then we have Tandy, who's she's the co-head of the homebrew.
She was the vice president of the National Homebrew Club.
Yes, sorry, Tandy, I will get this right, but yes, vice president of the National Homebrew Club, so she knows everything about home brewing and sort of, technical brewing. And then we have our friend Katie, who loves beer, and she likes to say that she doesn't know as much, and she's just here to ask questions, but she knows.
She knows a lot, and Katie's really good at asking questions. She's a brilliant interviewer, and also Katie, Lisa, and myself are from the U.S., and Tandy's from South Africa, and Katie is Irish. So it's really nice to give kind of perspectives from different countries and different cultures and things like that. So I think everyone's awesome.
The mix is important, and we have had other sort of co-hosts, if you like, from time to time, but we've been kind of the consistent, if you like, cohort. And I think the important thing for our purposes here is Christina and I are the ones who like all the spooky shit, so we are really excited about this.
Well, you are among friends today, so thank you very much for that.
Oh, I was just thinking, we didn't actually do this on the recording on y'all's podcast, but maybe we should. I came prepared with my favorite beer, and we didn't talk about it.
Oh my god.
Please rectify it now, Sis.
Yes, okay, so I am a devoted wino, so I actually don't drink a lot of beer, but when I do drink beer, there are three that I enjoy. So I enjoy a Corona and lime because I did my undergraduate degree in Texas, so that tells you a lot. Really like good wheat beers, like Erdinger. I'm a real big fan of Erdinger. And then, there's also one that has a banana on it, and I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, but it's a German one. And then my other favorite type of beer is a Lambic beer. I really enjoy that, and I've only found it very sporadically.
Yeah, it is a funny thing. Like, you'd think, Belgium is not far, and yet it is actually harder to get good Belgian beer here than it is in, say, Philadelphia, where there are 400 different ones you can get. Here there's a smaller selection, so I mean, that said, you can then go for the weekend. It's a different kind of thing, but it is strange that the selection of kind of lambics and things of that nature is just not as deep as you might get. Again, not everywhere, but in certain places in North America. So it's a funny...
Well, I only discovered it in Scotland. So that's where I did my postgraduate study. And they had like a local pub there that was kind of like very, very hipstery. But they were like, oh, whatever you want, we've got it. And particularly with beer and gin. And so they suggested a lambic beer to me at one point, and I was like, oh, I don't know, I'm not really a beer person. Then I had like 7 of them. So, like...
This is the thing. I think, a lot of people who are kind of more wine people can really get into lambics because they've got that kind of flavor profile, and there's just a lot you can get into. So I think that's the kind of the beauty of beer is there's something somewhere for everyone. Again, even though my son disagrees and he's like, no, beer is gross. Cider is what's where it's at. I'm like,
Give him time. We were all like that. Don't worry. Give time. So. To put you on the spot then, both of you, if you had to choose right now, what would be your current favorite beers?
Oh, that is...
Current. It can be current.
Current. Just say we'll go with current, yeah.
You don't have to be monogamous with this beer forever.
No.
Well, I feel like, 'tis the season. Any day now, the new Trouble Pumpkin will be out. And that is the only pumpkin beer really we get in Ireland. Now, sometimes there's a White Hag one too, but I have to say, no shade to the White Hag, but the Trouble one is typically a nicer beer.
Can you really get that pumpkin coming through?
Well, I think you get a really nice kind of interesting flavor with that one. It's really more kind of a brown ale kind of a flavor, because some of the pumpkin beers, actually, let's be real, a lot of the pumpkin beers can get into that Yankee Candle kind of a situation, which is but the Trouble Pumpkin is really good. But again, I always feel like if I had to pick like a beer kind of for this time of year, I'm going to go for Ballykilcavan Bambrick's Brown, just because it's good any time of year, but it's really kind of autumnal and lovely, and it's just the kind of beer that goes really well with food, or really with almost anything. It's a beer that tastes like beer, which is why I always like it, and I love that it's on the family farm and you can go and tour them, and they're doing their hop harvest right now, and they do a fresh hop beer. I think that might be the only fresh hop beer in Ireland, actually, now that I think about it. That's another beer they're going to do, but the Bambrick's Brown is just like so good. So I feel like that or the Trouble Pumpkin this time of year. So I know you asked for one and I've picked 2, but...
No, that's fair. I respect that. How about you, Christina?
I'm also going to go Trouble Pumpkin, just because I'm obsessed. And so they actually grow their own pumpkins for it. So like the difference with a lot of pumpkin beers is they're not actually made with pumpkin. So they're just made with pumpkin spice, which is great. See, I'm the Yankee Candle girl. Like, give me a beer that tastes like a candle. I'm here for it. I love it. Here for it. But the Trouble one is a bit more subtle, and it definitely has, it's made with the actual pumpkin, which is the historical way a lot of pumpkin beers were made, because it was a way to make beer when you didn't have access to malt. But that's a tangent for another day. But yeah, so I really, really, really like that one, and it's also really nostalgic for me. It's one of the first beers I got sort of obsessed with, and we kind of wait every year for it to come out, and it's like a big deal, and it's really exciting. So I have saved 2 from last year and the year before, so we have this one, and then we'll do a vertical tasting of all 3. I have one from last year.
Exactly. I have a Halloween party every year that I have some folks over to, only a few weeks away. But yeah, we're going to taste some of the Trouble Pumpkin, and I do have too some candy corn and some like American candy for that. It's going to be a whole thing. Fun. So we can taste test things.
Oh, that's fun.
That sounds incredible. I think you have just completely won over Suz with pumpkin beer. So
I am such a pumpkin whore. Like,
Suz is our resident.
Actually, as we're recording, I have a pumpkin from Tesco that I'm looking at, like right behind my microphone. It's not amazing, but it's fine.
Yeah.
I have a pumpkin face. And so I just really like, I don't know, I vibe with pumpkins a lot.
Okay.
So
that's fair. Yeah.
Pumpkins are really good. Yeah, they're actually, I saw some really nice pumpkins up at St. Anne's Park at the farmers market. Again, like little tiny ones. So if anyone is in Dublin and is kind of like, where can I get some little wee pumpkins? There are some up there at the farmers market. So keep an eye out. Or Lots & Co. as well.
Amazing. Thank you. I love that. I am very basic in my favorite beer in that it is Guinness, and
But no shame.
Suz has known me for quite a long time now. I have an unhealthy relationship with Guinness.
No, you have an unholy relationship. That's the correct term.
If I had to choose another beer, though, purely for nostalgia, it's Blue Moon, and it's purely just because of nostalgia.
Yeah. And that's fair. And that's the thing, like when people are snobby about beer, and we always say it's like there's a beer for every occasion, and like don't be weird about like why people like or don't like something. You know, it's all for a reason.
We are big proponents on this podcast of like what you like,
you
be
do
into
you
what you're into, like don't gatekeep, like don't be an asshole. It is not 2002. Like it's not cool.
Recently on a lot of our episodes, we found ourselves being like, you do whatever you want to do. It's totally fine.
Do whatever you want to do.
And I feel like, you know, there are certainly things where I'm like, oh, I wouldn't get it from them because they do terrible things to their workers or they're racist. But again, that's a very select group of people
for sure
have set out their stall with that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So you know who they are. And
and they're the good ones to avoid.
Avoid them.
Yeah, no, it's been there's been a lot of it recently, us saying, you know, you do whatever you got to do. Although recently I did catch some strays for saying that I am not a fan of Crocs. The hatred I got from some people.
Yeah. You guys have a whole Crocs thing going on.
Yeah. I still, just today, Suz, I actually got a message from someone about Crocs, sending me attachments to add on to Crocs. And I was like, I am not that person.
I don't think we ever properly provided the context. So my husband
I don't think we should, though.
We also find Crocs pretty hideous. However, we have found they are the best house shoe we have ever had.
I can see that. 100%.
Like, so we are, if you're into them and you like the aesthetic, like, you do you, girl. But for us, we wear them inside our domicile, and it is working for us.
That's what you're telling the public, is. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Am I going to get add-ons? I don't know. I haven't seen any of them yet. Nobody talks to me. But we'll see.
Yeah, well, you know, we'll see. Some of the add-ons did look great, I will admit that, but I'll never buy them, so sorry. So moving on then, I suppose what would be your favorite part about your podcast? Like your favorite part about podcasting? What do you love about it?
Oh, Christina, do you want to start? That's such a good question.
Yeah. So one of the things that I really like is I get to hang out with 3 of my closest friends. You know, it used to be every week. So every week I get to have a chat, and I love research and going down rabbit holes. And it's just really fun to go down a rabbit hole with like 3 of my besties and like, you know, just talk about history and beer history and fun stuff and things that we've been up to and what we've been drinking and hear their thoughts and stuff. And then it's also, you know, getting to interview just the coolest people doing the coolest things all over the world, you know, from different countries and everything. It's just been an amazing experience. And, you know, yeah, there's a lot to like.
Oh God, 100%. And so yeah, I would echo that, but also like especially like the beer history stuff, because and this is like back in the day, I used to have a beer history column at Serious Eats, and I got to do some really fun stuff, but like all like short form kind of things. So to have the opportunity where we can, if we want, like really rabbit hole on stuff, like not to say that's all we do, because we do a lot of other fun stuff too. And in fact, I think some of the things people really enjoy that we do are kind of like our beer lingo things, where we just talk people through like the crazy things people use for kind of beer terminology, things like that. Because it is like, it can be nuts. Like it's nice to kind of go through that. And those are good fun. But I think, again, like because we're both history nerds, it's nice to be able to go and do the beer history ones and interview people who are in that space. So I know we nerd out about those, but like Christina's saying, it's nice to just, you know, get with our friends and chat and have a beer. So it's good fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I would say that, like, yeah, I think that definitely for Rob, and I hope I'm speaking for Rob as well, but like, it's been such a great way to keep like in contact with you and like see, because ever since y'all moved out to wherever y'all moved out to, I mean, your house is lovely, Rob, it's fine, but like it's just very, like, my husband and I don't drive, and so where they live is very difficult to get to on public transport, so we really don't see each other that often. So it is really nice to like actually look into something that we're really interested in and we find kind of crazy and nuts and fun, and then be able to like just chat about it you know, once every week or every other week.
Oh, but yes, a fellow like non-driver, like, so here for that.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, we've been in a recent, like, really bad habit of we record at, like, 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, we
like,
do.
2 episodes back to back. And, like, when you're hearing us like you are not hearing me at all at my best. There's been a few recent ones where I've been out the night before and I have dragged myself out of bed to catch up.
Well, I remember I was not feeling well for a recording a while back, and it was your week, and so you were presenting the story, and in the story you said, "Now, Suz, they do have some evidence. They do have like an orb in a photograph," and he knows that's like a trigger for me.
It's a trigger.
I was just like, "No, Rob, no." I was like, "I'm gonna have to get off the call. Like, I can't be dealt this right now."
Look, I know the audience I'm playing to, so you got to do what you got to do. So I want to get into something that myself and Suz are going to talk about. So we are going to present some very, very miniature stories of our favorite Irish folklore and present it to you. You can let us know what you think. You can engage in it. You can talk about it as you want. It's totally fine. And if you want to share your own stories, your own favorite stories, please do add them in as well. We'd be delighted to hear them. But before we start, Suz, I need to talk to you, and guys, I need to talk to you as well about a leaflet that I got on the door the other day.
Oh dear God!
Which is
yes, you
genuinely, I think, the greatest thing I ever received in the post. So I live in Trim, which is a very historic area in Ireland for anyone that doesn't know. And every year during October, there's a festival here called the Puka Festival, and it's really fun. It's a great time. It's very kind of family oriented. It's a good laugh, and it's a huge deal in Trim. I got a leaflet in the door the other day from the Irish Society for Christian Civilization.
Oh,
God.
And I'll show you. So we're on a video call for anyone listening, but I'll show you what it says. Hopefully you can read it. If not, I'll read it out to you. But it says, Puka Festival, innocent fun or a door to the occult.
Yes. If I didn't want to go before, I definitely want to now.
100%.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh my God. Wait, did they get the fodder right on the puka? I'm just curious.
They did.
Okay, fair play then. Okay, so there we go.
What I appreciate about the whole thing is that they took this leaflet, they took the approach to this leaflet the way that I do to podcasting, and that they make mad statements and they don't back up anything at all with any sort of sources or anything. So at one point they just talk about a local citizen said this and just go off on some mad thing. But apparently the overall message is that the people of Trim were all filthy devil worshippers, basically. And yeah, it was a good one. It was a really good one to get. I actually really enjoyed it, reading it. And yeah, I was actually not going to go this year, but it's
now you're
shifted me the other way now.
Now you have to.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's been really fun.
That's amazing. And as someone who was a victim of the satanic panic in the 80s, and that my mom threw out a lot of my cool shit, like I gotta go now. Like that's just
It was
because wouldst thou like to live deliciously? Like that is.
I think the only thing that's very concerning to me about it is the really sketchy QR code that they have on the back. That like I looked at it with my camera, and the way it'll give you the link but it doesn't open it. It was bringing me to some random like multiple like numbers and letters sort of thing. And I was like, you know what, I'm actually okay, thanks. So,
yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So
I just don't know why the occult can't also be innocent fun. Like, why is the occult not innocent fun?
Yeah,
That's so good. Oh, I love it.
Also, like, I don't like the idea that like the Christian civilization QR code looks like it's gonna give me malware. Like, I'm getting mixed messages here.
Yeah.
Like that's the real
pick a lane.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It's one of those things where it's like the more you tell me I shouldn't do this thing, the more I'm absolutely going to do the thing. 'Cause I'm with you. I wasn't sure if I was going to go up to the Puka Festival, but now I'm like, maybe I will.
Yeah, look, the bus is right there.
It's like it's like when I look in the mirror every day, and I'm like, I am just a product of growing up in West Texas, like buzz cut hair, multiple facial piercings, tattoos, like no children.
Do you need a cat? Because, I've got a couple cats. So just saying.
I love cats, but I do not want any. Because I grew up with like 10 cats, and I love them all dearly, but I just don't. We travel too much, and it's like
Suz is also our go-to dog sitter, so I have to intervene there and say she's not allowed to get a cat. So
that's true. It's true. I often watch their horse of a dog.
Yes.
They say the black shuck is about the size of a calf, so just, there you go.
But does the black shuck need his own blankie when he goes to sleep?
Yeah.
Probably not. Well, but maybe, because I do feel like that's the thing we've lost in the lores. They used to turn into different things like a pile of hay or, a mist.
Yep.
And now they don't do that as much. It's just like a dog or not a dog.
Yep.
So
I think a lot of the good boys and girls like blankets when they fall asleep.
That's fair.
Just,
Yeah.
even if in their spare time they're dragging souls to hell, they might still want to.
Well, yeah, like Cerberus just has a really big fucking duvet.
Relax.
So, getting into what we want to talk about today. So, as it's spooky season, and the veil is thinner at the moment between us and them, we wanted to talk about some folklore in Ireland. And Ireland is, I'm gonna say it, we are kind of the epicenter of spooky at this time of the year. Like we love a bit of spookiness. So we were talking about what we wanted to do, and we decided that we wanted to talk about some of our, just one key thing from Irish folklore that we both like, and we'll present to you what we want to talk about in Irish folklore. So Suz, I'm going to let you go first, because I know you like to get in there first and talk about things. So I'll let you give your story, talk about it, and we'll see where we are after.
It's because I can't be stopping yapping. Okay, so so my favorite thing that I've grew up knowing about, kind of, but things I just keep learning new things about, would be the Fae, but in particular the idea of the Changeling. And so I'm really fascinated by this idea. So for those who, but first, before we crack on with things, I'll just, since this is a very mini one, I'll just give a couple of sources. Like there's a few.
I knew you were. You can't resist giving sources.
Oh, we love some sources.
There's a few very well-resourced Wikipedia articles that are very easy to find. There's a site called Round the Cauldron, Life as a Modern Witch site that gives a really interesting kind of portrayal. There's a really cool blog that I am having difficulty finding the name of, but it was on Irish fairy beliefs and the Changeling, and then a really kick-ass site I'm going to get into later, so I'm going to save that one a bit. So for those who don't know, the Changeling is a myth or a legend around a human-like creature that is found throughout much of European folklore, particularly in Ireland and the British Isles. And a changeling was a substitute that was left in a crib, often by a supernatural being, when after they have kidnapped either a human baby or a human young mother, which I found really interesting, because that was an element I didn't know. Was this they could replace a woman as well, like a grown woman. So again, there were often different signs for if your baby could potentially be a changeling. One of my kind of most out-of-pocket ones that I thought was the funniest was this idea that if your baby was eating too much food and looked like an old man, then they could be an elderly fairy or pixie that was just using your resources. And so I just love the idea that a pensioner was yeah, they've got a lot of good food in there, and I'm just gonna go for it.
That checks out.
Exactly. And so people would say, if your baby's very sickly or has really bad colic, it could often be a changeling, and they would do they're kind of these horrible remedies to kind of figure out if your baby was a changeling. I read some instances where a baby was left on the side of the road and left to lots of the elements or whatever, and then they took the baby in, and the baby was very cold, and they deemed that it's a human because it got cold. And there was a lot of mental gymnastics going on and things, and there was some that they were you should feed the baby more because it won't like human food, but then there were other documents I saw that were feed the baby less because of things. So there were overfed babies and there were starved babies, and it was all very unfortunate. But so I kind of want to cling on to two things, one of which would be the idea that a changeling could be a fully grown woman. And that would obviously, so I know that we have kind of a rule in the podcast that we don't do true crime, in particular, especially in the cases where there could be living family members or anything like that, and we don't want to exploit any kind of tragedy. But this is kind of, I want to talk about this from a historical point of view. So I want to talk about the murder that happened in 1893 of a woman who named Bridget Cleary, 1895. Her name was Bridget Cleary. I don't know if you know this, but she was murdered by her husband, who was convinced that she was a changeling. All because, and this is really interesting, it kind of feeds into the ideas about witches of the time, but she was a rather independent woman and had her own kind of independent stream of income. She was a very talented dressmaker, and one day God forbid. So he was not a fan. Also, she was fond of wearing red stockings, which, I mean, whorish behavior. I mean, it goes all the way back to Chaucer. But anyway, so she went on a 3-mile hike to deliver some goods to, I believe, a cousin. And then on the way back, she got sick because it was very cold. And she fell ill, and then after that he then became convinced she was a fairy, or a changeling from a fairy, and so he ended up murdering her. I believe he burned her alive, unfortunately. It was really gruesome. So that was something that I had known about the case in the context of like witchcraft, but I hadn't known about it in the context of this very particular like changeling dimension, which I thought was interesting. So there's that dimension that we can talk about. But one thing I want to hit, which is a much lighter note, which is really interesting, is on the site of Autistic Women and Non-Binary Network, or AWN. So they are a community and I'll quote them, to provide support and resources for autistic women, girls, trans feminine and trans masculine, non-binary people, trans people of all genders, two-spirit people, and all people of marginalized genders or no gender. They are committed to recognizing and celebrating diversity and the many intersectional experiences of the community, particularly in relation to neurodiversity, which is already like fucking metal. Awesome. But so I found this really cool piece that was written by one of their contributors, Kaylee Whalen. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And who's really interested in the myth of the changeling. And she's actually looking at it from the perspective of neurodiversity. So she's saying that a lot of the signs that they would point to in a lot of these history books about a child being a changeling there could be a connection made with the signs that we would now kind of see in children as them having neurodiverse tendencies or issues. So things like autistic stemming or particularly like ADHD, hyperactivity, things like that, that has been kind of the connection to the two. So I thought that was a really interesting kind of dimension that I'd never thought about. And so she's doing work around all kinds of changeling myths, and then all types of kind of myths that can be connected to neurodiversity. So there's just like a whole like you said, like a rich seam to be tapped there, it seems. So yeah, that's my very mini scroll through of the changeling myth.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, like on like the whole Bridget Clear thing, like obviously, yes, it's about the patriarchy, because her husband does seem to get up.
Oh yeah,
making some money, and almost like less him and more his family. Like they all come in and we're like, what's this about? Why is she off? And then it kind of goes south from there. So it's fascinating to like see all of these beliefs kind of stacked on top of things. And I want to say, I think he was convicted, but then he was later let out. Like there was
So he got 9 years in prison.
Okay.
For manslaughter.
But it was for manslaughter, yeah.
For manslaughter.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, who hasn't thought? Like when she gets a bit mouthy.
Yeah, but I think he went off and had like a totally like, if you like air quotes, normal life.
Yeah.
Beyond.
Oh yeah.
Which, was a whole thing. And again, the whole family was involved. So it's such an interesting case. And I think, even more interesting is I know more about how it was kind of reported in the British press, where it was like, look at these people in Ireland, where you're like, oh, okay. And then it went in a real direction. Yep. But it was seen as like, this is how everyone is. And you're like, well, actually, no, it's just this kind of particular community that is, freaked out this way. And again, you can find these little, pockets anywhere, but it served it served
the narrative. Absolutely. And I think that, it's interesting because if you look, I believe, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that there either still is, or it was not that long ago that like people who were in prison during the Satanic Panic in America were either like, they're either still in jail or were, I think it was, what was it, the McMartin preschool
thing, yeah,
like they were in jail for decades.
100%, yeah. And I'll come back to that in a minute, but I think the other interesting thing about changelings is they are fucking into their eggshells, are the like and they
yes.
Oh my god, Christina. They love their fucking eggshells.
Oh, boil the eggshells, like make the meal in the eggshell, like they're all about the eggshells.
When I was writing my book on Irish beer history, I came across a story about it brewing eggshells was written down in the 1800s, but it probably dates to well before that, to kind of figure out how to get rid of a changeling. And it was brewing the eggshells, giving this to the changeling, and then suddenly it turns into your old man who is there for your pensioner who wants the good food and runs off. If I remember the story correctly, it's been a while since I've read it, but from a beer perspective, I was like, brewing eggshells. That's really interesting, because the title of the book, the thing was brewing eggshells. So it was really interesting.
I tried
that kind of perspective.
I tried it.
Well, it kind of reminds me. I was just gonna say, it kind of reminds me of like we did an episode on the Witches of Belvoir, And there was a lot of different kind of concoctions or brews they would do to kind of, and unfortunately a lot of those contain, like, again, content warning for bodily fluids, but like a lot of piss. But yeah, so I ran across the eggshell bit, so I'm really glad you brought that up, because I just thought it was so, I wondered what the like the mythology behind it, or the scientific thought behind it.
Yeah, I've also come across recipes for beers that have eggshells in them.
Oh, right.
I wonder, is there like a broader connection to, like, is it like an anti, like, is it sort of protecting against something?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, like, there's definitely stuff that I've come across, like, in my research about, like, doing certain things to keep witches out of the brew and these certain ideas. The recipe that I found, I think it was in Eliza Smith's book, was adding eggshells, I think, part of the fining process, or there was some kind of something with that there, if I remember correctly. But yeah, so it's not so foreign, I would imagine, too. But with the brewing eggshells in the case of the story of the Changeling, there wasn't any malt or anything else there. It was just the eggshells. So that's just coming back to this idea that eggshells perhaps have some kind of power to get rid of.
Yeah, and they're like, look at these fucking eggshells. My God, like they have a whole thing about them.
Yeah.
I can't remember in what context I heard this, but like the eggshells had some kind of nutritional value, like could address some kind of deficiency if like ground up and added to, I believe it was added to bread or something. So I just wonder, like, maybe that there's some, like the folklorist who's looking at, neurodiversity in that context, but like maybe looking at like vitamin deficiency or something, like maybe your baby is like scrawny and crying all the time, and then like perhaps this does address some kind of deficiency it might have.
There could be a link there, you were saying, about like bread making, between like kind of like bread making and beer making, I suppose, with the yeast and everything, and eggshells and all.
Yeah, there's very much a continuum. Yeah.
Could be something there.
No, 100%. Yeah, and just a fun satanic panic story. So yeah, when all the McMartin preschool things were happening, and again, awful for those people who went to like actual like prison and all of these things. In that era, my mom freaked out and got rid of a lot of my cool ghost books and our Ouija board and all of these things. But the funny thing about the Ouija board, and again, just side note, I still do not have a copy now of the Reader's Digest Folklore and Mythology book, which I had. Can I get a new one now for like lever money? No, because now but anyway, had one back in the day. But funniest thing, and again, this is like sort of 1987, 1988, because I'm an old, so this happened a long time ago, but had the Ouija board, always had good fun with it, nothing weird ever happened. But my mom freaked out and was going to throw it away, and it kept reappearing whenever they'd put the trash out, and only like later, like when she put it out again, and she was like, oh God, what's happening? And like I like saw it again, and the trash man like looked at me and was like, like he did a whole like wink and nod, and I was like, yes, good for you. He kept like returning it, like taking it out of the trash, putting it like in my parents' garage. So like, fair play to you, sir. Amazing trolling. Like,
I just saw a post where somebody said that they didn't like their mother-in-law had been really bitchy about something, and so but she ended up being like, she read the book The Exorcist, and she thought it was the most evil book she'd ever read. So she was going to throw it away. So what the son-in-law did to get back at her was he took the book and then like ran it under some water to make it look, because that was it. She went and threw it in the ocean. That was it. So he bought a new copy and then ran it under some water and then put it in her bedside table. And like his father-in-law said, like, he has never heard that woman scream so loud and for so long.
Oh, I love it. I sadly, like, the Ouija board at a certain point they did finally get rid of it, but for the guy who returned it for like weeks at a time, like, sir, you're doing the Lord's work there.
Champion, my brother in Christ. Thank you so much.
Because it was a while, and it was, again, like, he had to work at that, but like, I'm sure it was a terrible job, and you know what, he found a way to make it fun. Good for him.
Making his own fun.
You gotta make it. It's the little things that keep you from wanting to disintegrate.
Man's gotta live. Love it.
100%. Yeah, and we were sharing in that. So we didn't know until we had that sort of eye exchange, but then it was like, good job.
Good. Amazing. Yeah. Look, you gotta do what you gotta do.
100%.
Okay, so I'm gonna move on, and before I get into it, I'm gonna say I'm not gonna give any sources because I never do. So sorry. But today I am going to briefly talk about the Banshee, and my personal
knew you were gonna do
experience. My personal experience with the Banshee. So there's going to be some trauma dumping happening. Suz has heard the story before. It was on a famously unreleased episode that never saw the light of day. But so I briefly want to talk about the Banshee. I could do a whole episode on the Banshee, and I've been putting it off for a year now. So this is the perfect opportunity to do it. So for anyone that doesn't know, the Banshee is this spirit. Basically, it's roughly in Old Irish translates to fairy woman or woman of the fairy mound. So it's bansheed, and it's this female spirit who basically heralds in the death of a family member. That's the best way to put it. And they traditionally will do it either by screaming, wailing, shrieking, or by something called keening. And the keening is the point that I want to talk about a little bit later, but it's really, really interesting. The thing that I love about the Banshee, though, is that they're connected to burial mounds in the country. So particularly in like the Boyne Valley where I am, there's burial mounds fucking everywhere. And the Banshee is directly kind of connected and linked in with them. So that's kind of a hook that I love about it, is that I walk out my door, I can see burial mounds. Like, so she's linked with it. And in the west of Ireland then as well, Banshee is a huge thing, really, really popular. And obviously, famously, just even recently, there's Banshees of Inisharan that just came out, which touched on the folklore of the Banshee in a minor way. So, you know, it's still this kind of, it's still in the modern, I suppose, thinking. But the Banshee, she's this generally an older woman who's seen with this kind of like long hair. Sometimes you see her combing her hair, so you're supposed to stay away from her, or if you see a comb on the ground, you're not supposed to pick it up because it's the Banshee's
she's busy.
comb. Yeah, totally. So if you're out walking anywhere and you see a comb on the ground, you're not supposed to pick it up because it means the Banshee has dropped the comb. And by you picking it up, you're inviting her into your life.
Oh, yeah, you don't want that.
No, totally not. Yeah, so you see this woman combing her hair. Just leave her alone. So she usually wears this grey cloak and a green dress. And some people have said that her eyes are red. I don't know about that, but, you know, that's out there. Some people have said her eyes are red because she's constantly crying. So we'll give her that.
But green will be a great color, so you know, there you go.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, she's getting all the colours in. Like she's she's basically a walking tricolour. So she's usually dressed in white, and some people have said traditionally that she had red hair as well. So like the stereotype Irish person, basically, I suppose, is what they're getting at. Nothing more terrifying than a red-haired person out in the middle of the day wailing. So, but yeah, so she's this really like interesting like fairy creature, I suppose, that the whole mythology around her is that if you see her or if you hear a woman wailing, it means that a member of your family is going to die. And what I talked about earlier with keening, this is something that I love. This is my favorite part of the Banshee kind of mythology lore, is this keening. So keening is like it's a style of like traditional mourning, but it's an like ancient Irish / Scottish like mourning sort of singing. So it's ban quincha is the Irish for it, and it's the modern Irish would be cuineach, which is weeping, or cuina, depending where you are in Ireland. And it's loosely what we would know now as sean-nós singing, which is a woman singing on her own, and this is done as a means of lamenting, basically. So that's what keening is. It's traditionally a woman would, for either a spouse or a family member, would wail on her own and would let others know that they were in mourning, the family was in mourning. But Irish legend, obviously, being what it is, we love a good story, and we've run with this one. So the legend speaks basically that the Banshee is lamenting for your family. And she would sing near you or near your family. And if you hear her at night, it's mostly at night, realistically, when you hear all these stories. But if you hear her at night, if you hear wailing on the wind, anything like that, someone you know or someone in your family or someone close to you is basically their numbers up. That's the whole point to it. But yeah, I just find it really interesting that the whole kind of like the lore to it is kind of established in actual history. Like it's that style of singing, that style of mourning, and it's kind of grown legs around it. It's just fascinating how it's gone from a very real, like raw emotion and a raw feeling for families, and it's just built so much more around it. And then the last thing that I want to touch on then, which I love, is that supposedly if you're really unlucky, several banshees can appear at once.
Oh, damn.
And if several banshees appear at once, it means either a great person or a very holy person is about to die.
Oh.
So allegedly,
I'm safe.
Yeah. So allegedly, many banshees have been seen in the past, and it was around the time that a pope or a saint has died, allegedly, which is, you know, it's good. Like we're all right. Like we're not. There's no harm with that. But yeah, just really, really interesting that this whole story, how it's come from, as I said, just a really raw, emotional time, and it's become something much bigger, and it's still very much so in the modern thinking. And now, my first experience with the Banshee, so I've actually had family members say that they've heard the Banshee. I think everyone in Ireland has a family member at some point who says they've heard the Banshee, or they know someone who has said they've heard the Banshee. Generally, I would imagine they're foxes, and it's mostly people from Dublin who don't know what a fox sounds like.
It is terrifying if you hear a fox, though. Like, it is a terrible sound.
Yeah. It's a woman screaming, basically.
I thought it was a woman screaming when I did my study abroad semester in London, and we had a fox get in the back garden, and I just honestly thought somebody was being attacked.
No, London foxes are really like aggressive too. They'll like come right in your back garden, and
they're not a good time. So yeah, I would imagine foxes account for pretty much the majority of them. But anyway, I've had family members say they've heard them. My personal experience with the Banshee, though, is not that. It's with a very old Disney film called Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
Oh, brilliant stuff. Yes.
And I'm sorry if I've triggered a bunch of people who know what I'm about to talk about. But there's a famous scene in this film that everyone should go look up on YouTube. I was actually looking at it today, and it brought something back. Kind of triggered me a little bit. But there's a scene basically where they have, honestly, probably the worst visual effects of any film of its time, that makes it more terrifying. That it's this ghostly, ethereal woman turns up on a carriage with horses and basically tries to pull someone onto the carriage, but she's like wailing as she's doing it and like trying to pull this person onto the carriage to take them away. I won't give too many spoilers if people want to go read it or watch it, but
oh my god, I just googled what it looks like.
It's
fucking terrifying. So yeah.
That's like deep fried Ghostbusters.
Yeah. So I saw this as a young child. I should not have seen this when I did. I think I was like 6 maybe. Should not have seen it. Saw it anyway, as you do. And I don't know why, but my mom thought this was hilarious that I was so frightened by it. To a point that like it became this thing where she'd be like joking about the Banshee being outside and stuff.
No.
And I was like living with this fear it was realistically only a few days, but it feels much more drawn out as a child.
Oh yeah.
But I remember like the climax of my fear at this point was my mom, the house that we lived in at the time, the like vacuum cleaner, the Hoover, and all was stored upstairs in the hot press. Mom was like, I want you to go upstairs and get the Hoover for me. I was like, no, I don't want to go up on my own. Was still clearly shook from the Banshee. And she was like, as a standard Irish mother, was like, get up the stairs and get the Hoover for me.
There's like a wooden spoon appearing on the edge of your vision.
So, Mom, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry for what I'm about to say. But yeah, so she was like, get up those stairs. I was like, all right, fine. I'll bring my younger brother with me. I don't know why that logic worked, but my younger brother was going to be the sacrificial offering to the Banshee. Got up the stairs. It felt like the longest walk of my life getting up those stairs. You know, it was not a good time. Got to the top of the stairs, opened the hot press, started to take out the Hoover, and then I hear this wailing. This, but like, I'm talking like Scooby-Doo levels of like ghost noise. Like, it was not at all a convincing noise, but to a 7-year-old, I was dead. Like, I genuinely was in trouble. So I just screamed, turned around, left my little brother behind me, like, fuck him, he's gone. Like, he can sort himself out. And no joke, I jumped down the full flight of stairs, hit the bottom of the stairs, like really hurt my ankle. To see my mom standing at the base of the stairs, breaking her shit laughing at me because all she saw and heard was this scream and then this child just going airborne towards her, basically. Landed at the base of the stairs. I ran straight past her. She was dead to me at that point. Like, I didn't want to know her. And ran inside to my older sister, who was basically also laughing. But I obviously decided she was more caring at that point. So she tried to console me. And then my mom basically had to live with that. But my sister made a very valid point to her of like, you better hope we don't need to bring him into hospital to sort out that ankle. Because what are you going to tell the doctor?
Oh, God.
So that was my experience with the Banshee. And it was... It's gotten to a point where I actually haven't watched the film since because it's also just not really something I particularly want to watch. But My family like to remind me about it a lot, so much so that my sister bought it for me on DVD a few years ago for Christmas.
And it's one of those films that Disney doesn't give a lot of love to in the back catalog. Like when you go to Disneyland, and like the OG Disneyland, I've never been to Disneyland Paris, but in Disneyland, there's a little ferry door, and I want to say it's near the Indiana Jones ride queue, but that's all you'll see. There's almost no other mention of it anywhere. There's no mention. It's one of these if you know you know
Good
things,
there
but that's all. Yeah. It's hidden. So
there's some problematic accents in that, to be fair. So
that's
I'm not
fair.
really surprised that they've Sean Connery trying to be kind of Irish.
Sean Connery sounds like Sean Connery as ever.
So it was not a good time for me. But I had fun trying to piece back the story today.
Well, do you know that my first intro to the Banshee was also via Disney, but it wasn't through that film. It was via, I don't know if this might date me. I think I just looked it up. So the series ran from 1999 to 2001, but it was a Disney television series called So Weird. And it was about a young girl who was probably like 12 or 13, and then her single mom. I believe her dad had either died or they were divorced. I know he wasn't there. And then her mom was a famous musician and they were touring a lot. But she kept having, like, the daughter would have these kind of paranormal experiences. But anyway, if her she went by Fee, but I believe her full name was Fiona. And so, like, her family is, like, canonically Irish, and they go to Ireland in one episode. And then they are, like, faced with the Banshee. And I remember, like, that being my first, I was like, this is strange. But then the next time I even ever, like, thought about the Banshee was in... Did y'all see there was a sci-fi television show called, and I mentioned this in our Succubus episode, was Lost Girl? It's about a bisexual succubus named Bo, but so like she's like dealing with the Seelie and the unseelie she, and there's a Banshee who like gets up in the middle of the pub, like screams, and then quickly leaves the pub because she doesn't want to be questioned about who she's screaming for. So the whole episode is them like having to track her down, tie her up, and make her like say who she was screaming for, who was going to die. So those are my only experiences with the Banshee.
Wow, that's hardcore. I love it.
Yeah, Disney's done some things. I know that's like the understatement of the century, but.
Yeah,
I feel like the Banshee gets a bad reputation. Like all she's doing is just warning you, like go home and hug your family, you know. And she's she's keening. She's sad for you. She's like, I'm so sorry. I have to tell you this thing.
Yep.
So you know her Tinder profile be like, I'm an empath.
Right. Oh gosh, 100%. That's so funny.
Oh, that's really funny.
I'd love to see someone Photoshop that.
Just the Darby O'Gill like Banshee into the Tinder box.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, God.
Someone should make Tinder profiles for all of like the sort of folklore Irish.
Do not tempt me.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine like Cook Collins and
oh god. Like
Cullen would be the most toxic masculine profile out there. Like,
imagine
he would be talking about his wolf pack and how he's an alpha.
Oh god, yes, he's got that Sigma grind set.
Yeah,
he'd be really into like Bitcoin and like no. It's just...
Oh yeah, he's definitely a crypto bro. Like he's 100%. Cullen is a big Elon Musk.
Yeah, but he invested heavily in Dogecoin.
Yeah.
I feel like this is one of those very controversial things. You're going to get some people that are well into Irish folklore are going to be like, Colin doesn't like Elon Musk.
Colin doesn't like him. That's a new sentence.
It's fine. We've gone to war with multiple groups of people in the past. It's fine. If people are offended about my hot take on Cullen, then they have more issues in their life.
Oh my goodness! It would be really funny to see something.
It would, yeah.
If anyone listening is particularly talented with Photoshop, I would welcome any submissions at all of this. So please do go about it if you can. I would love that. But yeah, that concludes our two stories. This was a lot of fun. It was something different for us. I really enjoyed trying to summarize the Banshee into about 15 minutes. So that was,
and your own like personal trauma with
yeah, well, that was honestly like I wanted to do that today. Really,
he needed this space.
I needed it. The Banshee just so happened to be the medium.
Like the HSE is great, but like he needs more regular therapy than they can provide.
Yeah, mine is of a more paranormal variety.
I can't imagine the things my kids are going to come out with like, and here is the artistic way in which I'm going to talk about how you like damaged me personally. I'm like, it's all good.
Yeah, well, look, if anything, it's made a good story. So
100%.
And that's all we're here for.
And your ankle still clicks.
Now that you say it, I do have a knee problem. So,
Yeah. No, it's the shoulder. But yeah, it's not as on demand as I'd like it to be. So I can't be just one for yes and
two for no. Sorry. I'm just thinking about in bed, like clicking my neck and being like, oh shit, they agree with me. We should have Italian tonight. One click.
It's a modern day Fox sister.
Exactly.
They are telling me to use Just Eat. I knew it.
All right, Lisa or Christina, tell us where everyone can find all of your lovely podcast and everything associated with it.
Yeah, tell us what you got going on at the moment. Let everyone know who's listening.
I'll let Christina start because she's got a lot going on.
She does.
So I have a book out, The Devils in the Draft Lines, the history of women in Britain beer history. That's available in all good bookshops, and that's been out since March. And I'm really excited to announce that my book, Filthy Queens, A History of Beer in Ireland, with 9 bean rows, will be out in early 2025. So we'll definitely be touching on a bit of Irish folklore as it relates to beer and beer history, and I'm really excited about that. And I'm launching a Substack. So if you like, again, beer history and folklore and that kind of stuff, you can check that out. But my handle is Bracciatrix, BRACIATRIX, and I promise I can spell, on all the socials. And that's where I'm at.
Amazing.
Yeah, and you can find us, both on the Beer Ladies podcast, again, with Katie and Tandy as well. We are on all your podcatchers, and again, we're on the socials that are not run by Elon Musk. So, although less on TikTok, we have a TikTok, but we're never there because that's just like too much work. So we're mostly on the Instas and the threads and that kind of thing. But you can also find me on Weirdo Dublin Pubs. So I talk about pubs and are they haunted? So far, I've not found too many good haunted pubs, but there are a couple stories out there. But I try to write about a new pub in Dublin every week and why you should consider going to that one. But yeah, we're out. I'll say Beer Ladies podcast was weekly. Now we're going kind of monthly-ish. But for anyone who's listening this time of year, spooky season, we have more than usual because this is when we're alive. This is our, we're in our, I don't know what era we're in because I don't know about that. I'm too old. But this is when we're awake and alive. So otherwise, we're going to be kind of monthly-ish. But we've got some exciting stuff planned this season, and we've got a lot of back catalog there for people who want to listen to us talk about beer history or beer styles, brewing, all kinds of good stuff. And we like to interview folks both from abroad, but also in the Irish scene because we want to support our local producers because they're making some good stuff and we want to see them do well.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And yeah, totally understand why you're monthly. You both have so much going on.
A lot happening.
Yeah. Absolutely understand. Thank you so much for coming on. It has been an absolute blast. We would love to do something again in the future with you. Maybe even go to a pub.
We're always here for going to
I think that has to happen. Right?
Yeah. God.
Absolutely.
We have to sit in that corner where the ghost is there, and we have to say, I'll be cold. I want to sit here.
Absolutely.
I'm thrilled for that. I'm like, I'd like to be a bit chilly. That sounds lovely when pubs really crowded. Come on.
Oh, 100%. You're in a proper Owl Lad pub where it's dark and warm.
Do you know how much Electric Ireland costs? I need this. I need this temperature.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, thank you so much. For anyone that wants to listen to us, you can get us on Instagram at the SpookAF Pod. You can get us on Threads. I actually have to thank Lisa. You have been responding to our posts on Threads and have encouraged me to now start posting on Threads again. So thank you for that. We don't have a Twitter, so sorry about that, but we won't be using it. And we're on YouTube. We upload all of our episodes, the audio there. You can get us in the comments there if you want to. I may or may not see the comments. I'll do my best to get back to you.
I will not, because that is a hard boundary for me.
Yeah, I don't look at our Twitter, our YouTube comments. I'm I'm sure they're there.
No.
It's just some things are just not for me.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I've become the buffer, basically, I think, for myself and Suz with that. And also, if people just want to send us an email, that would be lovely. You can get us at Gmail, at thespookyfpodcast@gmail.com. That would actually be lovely. We'd love to get an email in. Send us something in. We recently got a collection of spooky short stories sent in to us by someone. So
that's wonderful.
Suz, I haven't actually said it to you yet, but it's nice to see. So if anyone else wants to send us stuff in, please do. We'd love to see it. But with that, once again, thank you so much to Lisa and Christina for joining us. It's been an absolute blast.
Thank you for having us. We love it.
We've had so much fun. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.